Hey guys, so today we're checking out the DV8 Off-Road MTO Series rear bumper fitting all 2021 and newer Ford Broncos. So if you are in search of a heavy-duty look and some added utility for the back end of your truck at a very affordable price, this option by DV8 will be a great choice to take a look into. Now, not only will this add a ton of protection to the rear end of your Bronco, but this is also going to come with some options when it comes to recovery, additional lighting, and of course some extra styling while keeping some of those factory features. Now, this will be great for the Bronco owner who is taking their truck off-road and wants to make sure that their truck is very functional while also looking good at the same time with, of course, that heavy-duty appearance. Now, this will also be great if you're looking for a rear bumper that will offer a place to put additional lighting for better visibility out of the rear end. Now, I would like to mention that this will not include lighting in the kit. However, this will accept any DV8 3-inch flush mount pod light, and we do have those available on the site. This rear bumper will also tuck very high and tight to the back of the truck, being more of a high clearance choice if you're concerned about your rear end clearance or your departure angles when taking your Bronco off-road. Now, when it comes to the construction, this will be made of a heavy-duty, high-grade steel with a nice black powder coat finish on top, of course offering a ton of strength but also rust resistance. Now, when it comes to the utility of this rear bumper, this will come with two D-ring mount shackles that will be able to hold a 3/4 inch D-ring and provide recovery options for those just-in-case moments, whether you're off-road or on the street. Again, this will also come with two cutouts for 3-inch flush mount pod lights for additional rear end visibility. I also like the fact that this will accommodate for the different Bronco trim packages, able to accommodate the factory 35 and up to a 37-inch tire on the spare tire carrier, while also including a new license plate bracket with a license plate light, so you don't have to outsource for one. Now, speaking of factory features, this will also include the backup sensor holes to retain full functionality of those sensors, but it does come with inserts for those holes if you're not looking to switch those over to this new rear bumper. Now, like I said before, when it comes to price, this will be a more affordable option in comparison to some other choices in the category, coming in at roughly $1,100. Now, in comparing this to other rear bumpers on the site, this is actually going to be very inclusive for all of the features that it has, including the recovery points, light mounting options, and being able to retain some of those factory features. Some other choices may include some of those features, but maybe not all of them, or they'll have some additional bells and whistles that will up that price point. Not to mention, there are choices that will be a little bit more high clearance than this option, which will be better for somebody who's really wheeling their Bronco hard, or they may be a little bit more simplistic when it comes to the styling, as to where this, as you can see, is going to have multiple cutouts for additional styling, and you can even take those off and customize them to your personal preference, which really gives you a lot of options with this choice. Now, in my personal opinion, I think if you're looking for an incredibly functional rear bumper and want to save a couple of bucks, this is going to be right up your alley. Now, when it comes to the install, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about 3 hours to get the job done with some basic hand tools, and I would recommend an extra set of hands to help you lift the bumper. It is a 2-person job when it comes to mounting this up. Now, one of our installers here will show you how to get this onto your Bronco at home step by step. So that wraps it up for my review. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
The tools you're going to need for this installation include a ratchet and/or an electric ratchet, adjustable pliers, a wire crimp tool, needle nose pliers, diagonal cutters, a 7mm wrench, 10, 13, 19, and 21mm sockets, a 4mm hex head socket, Phillips head screwdriver, zip ties, T-crimps, butt connectors, electrical tape, an impact gun, a heat gun, and wire. To start the uninstall process, we're going to remove the spare tire just to make it a little easier and have a little bit more room to get the rear bumper off. So to remove the spare tire, we have aftermarket wheels, so I'll be using the lug nut adapter and a 21mm. Now, for stock lugs, you'll be using a 19mm socket. So we're behind the bumper now here, kind of in the fender well, and there's 2 wires that you're gonna have to disconnect, one on either side. And it's a simple push pin type connector. So just push in the black pin there at the top and pull out from the bottom, and do the same step for the other side, and then we can take the bolts out and remove this bumper. So for the purpose of the video, we lifted this up just to give you a better view of the bolts that we're taking out right now, but this can easily be done on the ground. So you have 6 bolts to remove this bumper. There's 2 19s here holding this tow hook on, which is a bracket that holds the bumper in place, as well as 2 19s here. And then there is 1 13 with a bracket that's behind here that I will show you in a moment, and one on the other side as well. So we have 2 19mm bolts right here holding this bracket on, and then this 13mm bolt here, and the same setup on the other side. So once we're done removing this on the driver's side, we're gonna move over to the passenger side and do the same steps. Then once you get the bolts out, just pull down to remove your tow hook. This plastic clip here is holding it in place. Switching over to my 13mm. All right, let's move on over to the other side. All right, once you get those 6 bolts out, the bumper is now free. So just be careful it doesn't drop. So let's put a hand on it. And it's relatively light, so we can just slide it off and get it out of the way. We have our factory bumper here on our workbench. We have to remove this harness and the sensors to put into our new rear bumper. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. There are 4 sensors, and we also have the the plate light here, which we don't have a spot on our new bumper, so we won't be removing that. However, we still do have to disconnect the wire. So I'm gonna show you how to do it here on these 2 sensors, and then you're just gonna do the same thing for the other 2 sensors. First, we're gonna loosen up our harness because it is connected to the bumper with several of the plastic retainers here. So we're gonna grab our trim removal tool and remove those first. So there are several different kinds, as you can see, gray ones and black ones. I'm just gonna go along here and remove them all. All right, now that our harness, oh, I got one more here, got a white one as well. Now that our harness is loose, we're gonna disconnect the connectors from the sensors, and they are a simple push pin style. So this tab right here, push on, and it kind of helps if you push down on the sensor at the same time and then pull up. So this is the tab right here that I'm speaking of. So I'm gonna take this one out as well. This is actually for our plate light that I was speaking of earlier. Our second sensor. Now we're going to route our harness through the brackets here. We might have to loosen up or take off this bracket as well to get the wire through here. But before we do that, I am going to show you how to remove these sensors. For this sensor right here in the corner of the bumper, we're going to take the sensor out first. And to do that, you have to push these 2 black tabs out of the way, as you can see. So they slide outwards instead of a normal tab that you would like squeeze. So if you do one at a time, you can get it out. Let me see if I can do this. So as you can see, I pushed the one to the side just to get it out of the way. And then you can do the other one, and then you can pull the sensor out. We're gonna have to remove these brackets as well, these trim pieces that hold the sensor in place. So the white trim piece slides out from the back, and then the black piece comes out from the front. And then you're just gonna do the same exact thing for the other 3 sensors. Important note here, as you're getting each sensor out, along with the harness, you're gonna wanna label them. So for instance, this part of the sensor harness here is the driver side. So I'm gonna mark this with a D, so I know it's the driver side, and then label my corresponding sensor the same way. And then as I go along, I'm just gonna label these 1 and 2. So I know that I'm starting from the driver side and moving this way over to the passenger side. And I will go along and mark each connector with the corresponding sensor. Once everything is out and you have everything labeled, you can remove your harness. And for ours, we did not have to remove the brackets. We're ready to transfer our sensors over to our new bumper. The first thing we have to do is knock out the plugs. Here in our aftermarket bumper, we have 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm just using a socket and a hammer to punch them out. So at this point, we're gonna put our sensor retainers into our new bumper. So as you recall, they did come in 2 pieces when we took them apart. The black piece is gonna go in from the front side of the bumper. The white piece is gonna go over top from the back side. And they simply click into place. And just do that for the other 3 sensor retainers as well. Now we can put our sensors into place. Now, I've already went ahead and lined them up as we labeled them earlier. So I'm starting with the driver's side here. And one thing to note is just make sure that the connectors are facing in a direction so that you can plug the harness in. Then here's my number 1. Then I'm just gonna continue on with 2 and my passenger side sensor. We're ready to lay out our harness and connect it to the sensors. So I'm gonna locate my connector that I labeled with a D. I'm gonna start from that side. And once you do that, everything else lines up. There's a couple notes I need to make. So we don't really have any place to put our plastic retainers. So we're gonna route it through the holes here that they provided just to keep it in place. I'm gonna go ahead and plug my driver sensor connector in. Moving along here. Got some options. You could route it under here if you wanted. There is a spot to wire tie. I'll probably grab some zip ties, wire ties, and just mount it there. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug in my number 1 sensor. So another thing to note right here is this is actually the plate light connector. You can identify it because it has the 2 wires instead of the sensor connector having 3. All right, moving along here to my number 2 sensor. So one thing I have to note here is from this number 1 sensor to the number 2 sensor, this would not reach because it was loomed up like this. So I went ahead and just took a box cutter and was very careful to cut the loom away so that I could get more of the wire harness out in order to reach. Right, and again on this side, we're gonna route through the bumper brackets here. Right, now I'm gonna go ahead and just get some zip ties and secure this the rest of the way. So as you can see, this is where I put the zip ties just to secure the harness a little bit better. Right there and right there. And at this point, we're ready to mount our plate bracket. So we're gonna flip the bumper. and it's going to get mounted right here. So the first thing we have to do is remove these 4 nuts and bolts using a 4mm hex head socket and also a 10mm wrench. So once you remove those nuts and bolts, this plate also comes out with it. Just gonna set that to the side now. So now that we have all our nuts and bolts out, I'm gonna go ahead and grab our plate bracket. And as you can see, it has 4 holes here where our nuts and bolts go, as well as this big hole, and all that lines up with our bumper. So we're gonna line that up, grab our decorative plate as well, put that underneath, and then we're gonna put our nuts and bolts through and tighten it down. All right, now we got the plate light kit that comes included with the bumper. We're gonna mount this up. So the first thing you have to do is take the little gasket here, foam gasket, and punch all these little holes out. We're gonna slide the wires through the 2 holes here. Then we can route everything through the center hole here for our light. Also, make sure that the light is pointing down towards the plate. Right, now we're gonna grab our bolts and washers and nuts. So the bolt is gonna go through first, through the light, come through the bracket here. Then you're gonna put the flat washer on, the lock washer, and then the nut. And to tighten that down, we're using a Phillips head screwdriver and a 7mm wrench. All right, and then don't tighten this all the way down because we gotta be able to fit the other side through as well. Makes it easier if you push up on the bolt working with this small hardware. And also, you don't want to over tighten since we are going in and through plastic, which is the light housing. So just make sure it's nice and snug. Make sure that the lock washer is just compressed just the slightest bit so you know it's not going to go anywhere. All right, and with the light mounted, we can move on to the wiring. Now that we have our plate light mounted, we're going to wire it up. To do that, we are going to have to create some wire extensions that we're going to splice on, and then we're going to T-tap into our wire connector here. And I'll show you how to do that right now. We are going to need some basic electrical tools, so just bear with me. So as I said, first we are going to create some wire extensions so that we can reach our light to our plate light connector. So I have black and a yellow, so I'm going to need about that length. Let me cut my yellow one to length. Now we're going to need a wire trim / crimp tool. Splice our ends. To remove the insulation first. As you can see, these are already pre-stripped, the insulation. They did strip quite a bit off in my case here, so I'm going to trim these ends off a little bit. So you're going to need a pair of dikes here, diagonal cutters. All right, I'm going to splice my yellow to the red and black to black. Using heat shrinkable butt end connectors. Once you got it crimped down, just give it a little tug, make sure it's nice and secure in there. And then another note is when you're crimping wires with a butt connector like this one, if you crimp one wire this way, turn the connector 90 degrees and crimp the other wire in that location. Just ensures a better connection. Otherwise, you might actually loosen the other crimp that you did. Okay, that one's good. Let's move on to the black wire. So you want to make sure that the wire is in there far enough, otherwise you're not going to get a good crimp as well. So I'm twisting the butt connector onto the wire just to get it to go in there with enough length to crimp. All right, and before I route these through the bumper here, I'm just gonna go ahead and heat shrink these while I am here. All right, now that our splices are made, I'm gonna go ahead and route it through this little grill here, just to kind of keep it clean. Then I'm gonna follow our harness sensor slash plate light harness through this bracket here on the back of the bumper. All right, so I'm actually gonna trim my black wire down as well, just a little bit, just to keep it nice and neat. All right, now that everything's routed and to the proper length, I'm gonna T-tap into here. Now, you can wire this up however you'd like. We're T-tapping for the purpose of this demonstration, just so we don't mess up our harness. But another way you could do it is you could cut this off and just do more butt connectors if you'd like, or you could do, your typical male-female connector as well. So for T-taps, just want to make sure that the wire you're tapping into is in this metal tab here. There's a little groove for it to slide into, and that's what actually splices through the insulation and creates the connection. Use my needle nose pliers to press this together. All right, same thing for the other wire. And you may have to cut away some of this black insulation as well if you're doing it this way, just to give you enough room to tap into without being too close to the actual connector. All right, now we're gonna crimp on the male connector side onto our wire extensions. I like to grab the connector with the crimp tool first. That makes it a little easier. That way your wire's not sliding out as you're trying to put it into the crimp tool. Again, just give it a nice tug just to make sure that it's connected properly. Not going to go anywhere after you finish up. All right, and then you just simply plug in yellow to yellow and black to black. You can also go ahead and wire tie or zip tie this up just to keep it nice and in place. Once that's all finished up, we're going to move on to installing our brackets. Moving on to the brackets. Now, I have the bumper upside down, so this is actually the top side of the bumper, and this is the bottom side of the bumper here. So we're gonna orient our brackets like this, with this being the driver's side. So this flat surface here on the bracket is gonna be the outside, towards the outside of our Bronco. So we're gonna flip it around like this, orient it so, and to mount these, we're gonna get some of the hardware that is included with the kit. So we're gonna need a bolt, 2 flat washers, a lock washer, and a nut. And it takes 3 sets of those per side. So actually, before we put our bolt in there, we want to put a flat washer on the bolt. Come through the back side, or actually come through the front side. Put our other flat washer on, lock washer, and then nut. And we're gonna leave them just hand tight for now, because there is some adjustment within these brackets. So we want to make sure that we have, that we're able to adjust as necessary. So again, bolt with the flat washer from the front side to the back, flat washer, lock washer, and then nut. And 3 sets per side, as I said. And once we're done this side, we're just gonna do the exact same steps on the other side. We are ready to mount our bumper up to our bumper supports. So you can see here, I have a setup where I can wheel the bumper over because it is quite heavy. So you might want to grab a friend, but I grabbed my little stool to wheel it over and 2 jack stands to prop it up on while I put it in place to mount it. So as I'm sliding my bumper up into place, you can see here where my brackets are on my bumper, and they line up with the bumper support right here. So as I'm sliding it, I'm also moving my jacks for support while I'm lining this up. And I'm gonna have to move back and forth because this does kind of have to go on at the same time. So once I have this side lined up, I'm gonna move over to the other side and line that up as well, and then put the bolts in through the bottom. So we have our bumper lined up, but we don't have it bolted up to our bumper support yet. And just a quick side note while I'm here, the wires that were bare, I did tape up to protect. Since we routed this through that grate there are sharp edges. So we just want to make sure that all our bare wires are connected and protected. So speaking of connecting wires here, we're at our sensor connectors, and we're going to plug those in while we're here and we have room. So when you have them lined up properly, just squeeze them together and you should hear an audible click. It was a faint click, but I did hear it. So that connector is good. And we're just gonna do the same thing on the other side for the other sensor connector. Now that we have our bumper bracket lined up with our bumper support holes, we can go ahead and replace our factory hardware that we removed earlier. Remember to always put your bolts in a few threads by hand before you put a tool on them. Once you have them in there, a few threads, grab your 19 mil and tighten them down. Now we're gonna leave them just a little loose because there is some adjustment this way as well as up and down with these bolts. Once you got these tightened down, we can tighten these down a little bit more with our tools. So I'm using an adjustable wrench for the bolts and a 21 millimeter socket for the nuts. Again, I'm not gonna tighten these all the way down yet because we do wanna take a step back and look at it and make sure it's lined up to our liking. Once you have these down, just tighten just a little bit so we can adjust. Do the same exact steps on the other side. So as you can see, we took a step back and made sure our bumper was lined up to our liking. And then I just went back and tightened all my nuts and bolts down properly. The last step now is to just replace our spare tire.
That's going to wrap it up for my review and the install of the DV8 Off-Road MTO Series rear bumper fitting all 2021 and newer Ford Broncos. For more videos and products just like this, remember to always keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.